Tax filing season can trigger anxiety for any taxpayer, regardless of income and no matter how honest and careful they are when preparing their returns. Some taxpayers intentionally pay higher taxes and avoid taking deductions they know they're entitled to just because they fear the prying eyes of the IRS. And when the dreaded audit happens, the experience can be both emotionally and financially draining. But tax expert Dan Pilla says you never have to fear the IRS again. In his book, How to Win Your Tax Audit, he offers proven strategies for audit-proofing your tax return and coming out on top of an audit if the IRS comes knocking on your door.
Well, Dan Pilla joins us now to tell us what you need to know to keep the IRS off your back. Dan, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pat. Good to see you again.
Hey, listen, I stand, I went to law school. I majored in tax law, but I stand in awe at your knowledge of the code.
Well, thank you.
It's unbelievable.
Well, Pat, that's what happens when you don't have a life, and all you do is read the stuff the IRS puts out.
You go crazy. But listen, let me ask you, how many changes have there been in the code in the last few years?
Last few years. Let's go back to 2001 when this craziness started with all the changes. There have been more than 4,600 tax law changes between 2001 and 2012. And people can't figure out why the tax code is so confusing, Pat.
Well, how does anybody keep up with it?
Well, you can't keep up with it. I mean, the dollars and cents part of the tax code, thankfully the procedural parts, the taxpayers' rights issues, those things stay fairly static. And that's why the book is important, because it talks people through what those procedures are. It's the dollars and cents stuff that changes so much. What's deductible, what's not. One year you can write this off, the next year you can't. One year you get this credit, the next year you can't. And that's stuff that's changing all the time.
Well, you pointed out that the people who do the audits can't keep up with it either. And on challenge, what percentage get overturned?
Yeah, I document in the book, Pat, that the IRS is wrong between 60 to 90% of the time in the tax audit results they come up with. The problem is most people don't challenge them. Most people don't understand that you got the right to challenge the IRS.
Say that one more time. Between 60 and 90% of the time they are wrong?
They are wrong. Tax auditors are wrong.
60 and 90%
of the time. It depends on the issue. It depends on what issue we're talking about. But when the issue is income, and this is a very common area now where the IRS attacks a tax return, they don't look at the deductions so much because fewer and fewer things are deductible these days, right? I mean, there just aren't that many people that are claiming deductions on their tax returns anymore. So the IRS focuses on the income, and what they do is they challenge your income as reported on the return, and they accuse you of having income that you didn't report on the tax return. Well, when the IRS sets up this income, and I call it phantom income because, of course, it doesn't exist, the IRS just takes the position that you owe more taxes based on this income. When you challenge those results and you use the procedures I have in the book, that's where they're wrong 90% of the time on the income question.
Most people just cave. It's much easier is to say, okay, we'll give you the money.
Well, here's what the problem is, though, Pat. I mean, procedurally it's easier, that's true. But as also I document in the book, the typical tax audit will net the Internal Revenue Service in terms of alleged taxes owed more than $12,000 or $14,000 in additional taxes and penalties. And when you add the interest, it doubles. So now how easy is that to just pay the IRS $20,000+? I don't know many people that can just write a check for 20 grand and not miss the money.
Well, you also said that they admitted that it was mostly bluff, so that if the American people realize it's a bluff, we'll be in trouble.
It was former Senator Henry Bellman that said an official of the IRS once told him that if the American people understood that the IRS operates on 90% bluff, the entire system would collapse. and the fact of the matter is, Pat, that the IRS systematically uses bluff and intimidation, misinformation and disinformation. In many cases, they just outright bold-faced lie to people concerning what their rights are.
You had something very interesting about a person's word. You think, well, your word's got to be supported, but that's not true.
Well, when we're talking about a tax audit, the burden of proof is on the taxpayer. And the IRS will take the position that you got to have some kind of a piece of paper to prove the deductions on your tax return, some third-party statement. Well, Pat, people lose records all the time. I mean, it happens all the time, whether it's a fire, a flood, any sort of reason why records might have been destroyed. Maybe it moved a lot. Maybe there was just, you cleaned out the garage and somehow the box got tossed out that shouldn't have. This happens all the time. And in the book, I document the law that allows you to reconstruct law lost records, so that if you're missing something, you can still support your tax return by reconstructing that using chiefly a strategy of an affidavit, which is nothing more than a detailed letter of explanation that you have notarized that becomes a sworn statement, and that becomes evidence to support the truth of your tax return.
Well, it's kind of a tough thing, though, isn't it, to face the wrath of the IRS?
Well, it's a scary thing, Pat. There's no question about that. And here's the thing that makes it scary for people is they don't understand what the process is, all right? And so what I do is I lay out the process for you step by step so you understand what's going on. I show you how to prove that your tax return is correct. And this is what people need to understand. The burden of proof is on the taxpayer. The IRS never has to prove you did it wrong. You have to prove you did it right. Well, how do I do that, all right? There's a system for doing that. And it's relatively simple if you understand what it is. The other thing is people believe that it will go more difficult for them. It'll be harder on them if they fight back against the IRS than if they just roll over and cave in, and that's absolutely not true. When you challenge the tax audit decision, as I've said already, the decisions of these tax auditors are wrong 60 to 90% of the time. You're going to win your case, you're going to keep your money in your pocket where it belongs, and they're going to leave you alone, Pat, because they have to go after people who are going to roll over and pay the bill.
Let me ask you one thing. They've got huge computers, and they're set up in terms of deductions to take averages and so forth. So when you file a return, the computer will test you against those various averages.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's called the discriminant income function system. It's the most common way that the IRS selects a tax return for audit. Their computers compare every line of your tax return with national and regional statistical averages. If any line of your return is out of sync, the difference is scored. The higher the score, the more likely you are to be audited because the farther away from the averages you are. Doesn't mean your tax return is wrong. And this is what people think. I've been selected for audit. I must have done something wrong. Now I'm in trouble here. And that's not true at all. It's just simply a statistical analysis. And as long as you can prove that your return is correct, you're okay.
But you've got to keep records, don't you?
Oh, you got to keep the records, Pat. Listen, 2/3 of all the problems that people have, the legitimate problems that people have with the IRS, are because of lost or bad records or incomplete records or anything to do with records. I spent a great deal of time in the book, even if you're not being audited. You need this information because I show you how to keep the proper records. I show you what records are required, I show you how to maintain them, and then I show you how to present them to the IRS if they do ask or do challenge your return.
Dan Pilla's book is called How to Win Your Tax Audit. It's fascinating. It's just loaded with information. Where do you get it? How do you get
the book is available right at your website, Pat, cbn.com, so your viewers can go right to your website, cbn.com. We've got a special package that we've set up for your viewers, and they can order it right there.
Well, I tell you, it's pretty important to find out what's happening, and if you don't have professional advice, it's here in this little book called How to Win Your Tax Audit. Dan, it's tremendous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Appreciate it.